Hi. Happy New Year, everybody. We're gonna try this again. I tried to do a live stream yesterday, but something kept messing up, and I think I fixed it. I'm going to become a pro at this live streaming thing. I had to watch a lot of tutorials. So let me know if the sound gets weird, like if the background sound is too much. Happy New Year, Sam. Okay, let me just check this. Yeah, so let me know if there's anything off with the video. There was, on the video that I did last week with Ryan, there was like an offset with the audio, and I have no idea what happened, so oh well. Those little things can be annoying sometimes. So how was everybody's weekend going? It's always interesting with New Year's because we put so much emphasis on the beginning of a new year. And I remember thinking at one point, I think I was in my 20s, and I thought, you know, New Year's is good. It's good to have resolutions. It's good to have hope for a better year, or, you know, all of that. But it's very like, it doesn't really make that much sense. Like the people who say, oh, I'm gonna start doing this next year, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna have this type of attitude, or it's like, why don't just start now? I understand that there's to have some sort of program schedule and all of that, but I think, like, if you're gonna start eating well, do it now. Didn't really do anything, just watch TV, and then Sandro and I had another video chat at midnight. That's good. Yeah, so as I said yesterday, if you were here, Aaron is visiting his family in his hometown, the same place we went together a few weeks ago for the wedding. He went alone, not because we wanted that, but because this weekend there's a lot of people vacationing and visiting their hometowns. Guadalajara is basically, it's the second biggest city in Mexico, so a lot of people come here to work or to study, but they're not from here. And my boyfriend's one of those people, and so we were both planning on going, but then I realized that the animals, there's nobody here that can take care of them, and yeah, so so we decided that he would go and spend time with his family because he couldn't do it for Christmas and all of that, blah blah blah. Just the decisions you have to make. It was kind of weird not being with him for New Year's, but like I said, I don't really put too much emphasis on New Year's. Christmas is more important to me. But anyway, so yesterday I was looking at my timeline in Facebook, I think, and I'm a part of a few groups of people from my old Catholic community, and somebody posted a new video that the U.S. the district made about the priests and the priesthood, and the person who posted it was criticizing it because there's there's a few accusations of misconduct between the priests and girls and boys, I guess, too, in the United States. And I mean, I'm not going to talk to that because I'm not in a position to really know what happened, and I'm not going to sit here and say anything definitely. I'm not going to say that the accusers are wrong because I don't know. I'm not going to say that they're right because I don't know. I don't know. And I don't want to play those types of games where, you know, I've seen people, especially places like, there's a news agency called Church Militant, and I'm sure they've had true stories in their portrayal of my former religious community, but just how they treat my story, if you've never seen my video on that, I made a video. It's called Dear Church Militant, and it's where they took very few facts about what happened to me and then painted this elaborate story that doesn't exist, that never happened, and they use that to attack my former religious community. And although I will never shy away from criticizing people and their actions when I deem them to be wrong, especially from personal experience, I don't also condemn a whole community for the actions of a few people, or even they also have it out for anything gay. Always harping on, that's true too. Church militant. It's just, but anyway, I'm not going to play that political game because that's what it is. You know, you see people fighting with each other, but it's not even fighting with each other. I don't even think the SSPX, my former community, I don't even think they address what Church Militant says at all. So it's almost like Church Militant is just yelling, and then the SSPX is ignoring them. So I don't know what the best. I don't know. That's not my. Although I was a part of it, that's not my world, and that's not my experience with that. But I definitely think that we should not be so quick to agree or condemn. I don't think that's ever a good approach with anything. So anyway, so I saw the post, and of course a bunch of people, they're horrible, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay. So I started watching the video and it put me in such a weird mood because I was brought back to a younger version of myself before I went to the seminary, and everything that they were saying about, you know, people aspiring to be a priest, or the intentions that you should have, the changes that happen in the seminary, all of that were things that I was filling my head with at that time in my life. And I had so much generosity, or I had so much, like, I just wanted to dive into it and give myself 100%. And hearing the words from these various priests throughout the video, I was just like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's like nostalgic, but like in a weird way, like in a unsettling way. Because I still look back at that time in my life. The only bad part of my life of that experience were the last year before I left. Before that, I was happy for the most part. I was at peace. I felt like I was integrally connected to what I believed. There was no different parts of myself. It wasn't like I was reserving a part of myself for something else. Like I truly believed, so I gave myself to that belief, and I admire that in myself, in my past. But yeah, I remember those feelings of wanting to be a man of sacrifice and giving and being an instrument of God and helping people, and all of that was what motivated me to go to the seminary. It wasn't for anything selfish. I know that's hard to just say because you don't know me and you don't know my intentions really, but yeah, but there was a part in the video where my old spiritual director talked. He only gave one little segment, and he was talking about obedience. And I remember when I would go to see him, there was, well, I think I've said this before in other videos, but when you go to the seminary, each seminarian chooses one of the professors to be their director, their spiritual director, so to help them kind of maneuver through the seminary and prepare them for the future. They're an integral part in that because it's more personal. In the seminary, you learn things, it's facts, you memorize, you build up these good habits, but for the interior change and to really give yourself over to what's happening around you, there has to be that direction. And so I chose a priest because at that point in my life, I knew that there were certain aspects of myself that needed to change. And I wanted someone who was going to be challenging, who was going to challenge me, who was going to push me, which is interesting in itself. Like, why did I want like a very overbearing type of personality? Because honestly, I would go into sessions with him, because we went every week, and I remember being afraid of his reaction, or being afraid of saying the wrong thing or not. Anyway, but he talked in this video, and he talked about obedience and how obedience is the cornerstone of the priesthood. And then I watched a sermon, because that brought me down a weird rabbit hole. I watched a video. There's actually a video that has me as a seminarian. It might have been one of my last years in the seminary. but I'm in the classroom. I think there's another scene with me in the dining hall, but it was it was like, whoa, yeah, that did happen. Because it seems I remember everything, but to actually see it is a totally different thing. Like, oh yeah. And there's so many things that I forget. Like, I don't think, let's say tomorrow I was like, well, I'm gonna go back, and let's say that they tell me, okay, you can start saying mass again, which wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen. But let's just say that they did. I wouldn't even remember that that part of my life went by. I mean, it's 7 years in the seminary, but the part where you actually like are seriously studying to be a priest and preparing, like the technicalities, like that happened so quickly. Um, and there was also a moment where I wasn't at the seminary for, I forget, I think it was like 4 or 5 months because I was dealing with an illness, and I was studying at home. But when I came back, it was only a year and a half left, and it was like bam, 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 ceremony, and you're like doing all these new things, and just you're preparing for ordinations. So everything went by really quickly. So like now, it's like it's gone, like all that knowledge. What's with the inspirational music? Can you guys hear the music? I need to change this. All right. So um why don't we watch a little bit of the video? And if anybody, I kind of, usually I come here and I have a list of things that I want to talk about, but I kind of wanted it to be open. So if anybody has any questions or about anything, and I am comfortable to answer them, I will. But but yeah, anybody can just feel free to do whatever. Um, great look, great face. Um, let's see. All right, well, I guess we'll turn that off.
Is really beautiful and I would say amazing to see
He has a
how
French accent.
this great ideal of priesthood is still attracting young people.
The great ideal. Let me turn on the. Okay, that might help. All right, let's watch that again.
This great ideal of priesthood is still attracting young people.
So the great ideal of the priesthood is still attracting. I've said this in other videos. Hello, Alabama. Thank you for stopping by, Roger, and everyone else who's out there who's too afraid to talk. I can see how many of you are out there. I'm just kidding. No pressure to talk. Yeah, the ideal. One thing I've been thinking about recently is, obviously in religion, for me, there was a standard, there was an ideal of a perfect form out there, and everyone was aspiring to that ideal. And coming out of religion, I realized that people are, not that they're without ideals, but it seems like there has to be something that we live by. There has to be something that we look up to, that we aspire towards. And for some people it's religion, it's God, it's these virtues, this standard of living, this ideal standard for them as Christians or any sort of religion that has that type of structure. But then you have other people who, in the absence of religion, it's almost like they put other things, other movements, other ideas as that, like they replace it, and they replace God with those things. That came out way more confusing than I wanted it to. But their ideal is the environment. Their ideal is feminism. Their ideal is whatever movement, whatever ideas are out there. And it's like, then once they have the ideals, then they're able to judge their actions according to that ideal. Are they acting in accord with that? Because I can't imagine people who are without something, without some sort of standard. You have to have something to compare your actions to. And everybody does it. And I see different movements, especially now when we see the rise, the dominance of some sort of atheistic viewpoint on the world, that these movements are becoming godlike to them, and people are willing. I mean, we even see martyrs in those movements, and those people are exalted as holding up the ideal, dying for the ideal. And this has happened, I'm sure. History of man is like this, but that was for me before I went to the seminary, and during the seminary too, more intensely during the seminary, as I learned more and more about what a priest was. That was my standard, and that's what I was trying to reach towards. And something that I'm not 100% sure how to think about it yet, but it seems like to be a good person. What does that mean? To be a good person? Does that mean to have to be good perfectly? Or is it just to be the good that you're capable to be at this moment? I think that I had to accept that I was good enough. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I think that for a lot of my life, there was looking at what lacked in my actions, what lacked in my intentions, what lacked in my thoughts, my appreciation, my life as compared to the ideal. Then look at what I did have. And I think that that's like, I never want to say I'm good enough, to the meaning that I don't need to improve, or that I shouldn't improve. I shouldn't try to make strides to reach a better version of myself. But just to be able to say, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Right now, I'm pretty good. Obviously here and here and here and here and here, I can work on things, but I'm pretty good. And of course now I'm very open with this process. I hope that helps people to at least realize that they're not alone, because it is kind of confusing out there. And I'm in the thick of it, just like any of you are. I'm not here telling you this is how you should think, but I'm more opening up ideas. But right now, it's like, okay, I would like to improve in certain things. I mean, obviously, you can say health, fitness, like those types of things. There's kind of like an objective viewpoint with those, and something that's beyond morality necessarily. But with other aspects of my life, before, it was very clear what that ideal was. It was very clear, like, the priest is obedient. What does that mean? You do what you're told, not unless it's something evil. But if you don't understand it, if you don't agree with it, you obey. That's it. That was the standard, and it was like, oh, well, that's pretty clear. And actually, that's the reason why I left. Well, not the reason, but that's one of the ideas that I had. If I obey, I will destroy myself, and I don't think anybody wants that. Uh, so yeah. So now it's like, okay, what is my standard? What is my what am I looking towards? I can look at specific people and say, oh, I want to be more like them, or I want to be more like this. I want to be more like that. But what am I shooting towards? And I don't know if I have that perspective just because of religion and because I'm so used to thinking like that. But yeah, that's a thought that came into my head within the first 13 seconds of this video. That was a thought that came into my head, and I wanted to share it with you. And I'd like to hear your thoughts about that too.
It's impossible to explain this on a natural basis. It is clear that our Lord is behind attracting through His grace young people. And He will do the same till the end of time, because He wanted to entrust all the treasures of His redemption to the priests and not to anybody else. We can't change this rule.
Okay.
The priest has a power to do things which in his human nature he shouldn't have the power to do.
By the way, I know all of these priests. I know all of them. Some of them, one in particular was my best friend in the seminary. So it's really bizarre to look back, or to look at these.
To do.
The priest is one united intimately to Christ, the second person of the Blessed Trinity.
Like, I mean, if you're Catholic or not, if you're watching this, but to be a priest is a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Like, I've come across people now who tell me, like, why do you have problems with your family? Like, it doesn't seem like a big deal. You know, you come out as gay, but like, this seems like a huge reaction. And it's hard to explain to people. Like, the priest is the one united intimately to Christ, that like the priest is elevated to this super status, this semi-divine status. And so you see a priest crumble in their eyes. That's what they saw with me. And it's like your whole idea of the priesthood is crumbles in a certain aspect, and it causes a lot of confusion. And that's what happened with my family, especially. And actually, I had one friend who contacted me after and was screaming at me, yelling at me, sending me all these emails, you know, just because there's this expectation about the priest and what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to act, especially under suffering. When you suffer, you're supposed to be just like Jesus and be nailed to the cross and die. You know, there's all these expectations, and if someone is not capable of just sitting there and taking all the hits, is human, then it destroys a little, or at least weakens the idea that people have of priests. And of course, as a priest, I saw my fellow students. I knew myself. I listened to their confessions. I knew that priests were just people, just men. And like, it didn't scandalize me when I heard that this priest did this or this priest did that. It didn't surprise me. You know, when I hear about all of the abuse in the church, what surprises me is not that there are men out there capable of doing that type of thing. That's not what is surprising to me. It's not even surprising to me that they're priests that are doing it. That's not surprising to me. What's surprising to me is the cover-up of it, the sweeping it under the rug to maintain the facade, to maintain the stability of the hierarchy. That same hierarchy that my spiritual director in this video says that I should obey, or I should have as a priest. I don't believe there is anything special about priests. Their vocation is different, not better than anyone else's. Way too many lay Catholics put these men on pedestals. Well, I mean, speaking as I did, or speaking now as I was, there is Catholics, just in the doctrine, priests are on a different level. Not by virtue of who they are as a person, but by the gift given to them by God, by the sacrament. It's not that they deserve to be there. And I think that in that perspective, it's more reasonable to know how to see a priest. That's not what it was, like Jennifer said. That's not what it was like in my former congregation, where it was it wasn't even pedestals. Some of the priests were like, it's hard to describe. It's like almost like the father, like biological father. The priests were treated like a biological father of people, like someone who they admired, someone who they respected, that they listened to, not just with spiritual things, but with everything. And they obeyed them, and they treated them with like this authority that, a father has within for the children. And it was like this weird dynamic that happened. Because when I'll speak for myself. And if that applies to you, great. If it doesn't, great. But I know that when I was going through Catholicism, there was an emphasis on the fact that I was broken and I was in need. I lacked something. And the priest was the means for me to reach that, to fill myself, to connect myself with God. So because the priest is in that position in people's lives when they are, I'll speak for myself again. I needed the priest, and I looked up to the priest because of who they represented from that perspective that I had. And that through them, I was able to reach God. And it's never that I like mixed the lines. Like I never saw them as God, obviously not, but their role in my life was so integral to my stability, my peace, my sanity at times. And something that every religious Catholic Christian thinks of, at least I did, my salvation. The priest was integral in that. So, yeah. But specifically in this previous community, it's a long story, but the priests are basically like the last bastions of the true interpretation of the Catholic faith. So they're almost seen as war heroes. And a lot of them do really good things, and they're really good men, and they really do care, and they really want to do the right thing. And it's not their fault necessarily that people treat them like that, but it's the whole environment. And there's this weird dynamic that happens between the laity and the priests. But there's also normal people who, just see the priest not on their same level, but not anything special necessarily. All right. I don't know how much I want to watch this video. I've watched it twice.
The priesthood is a gift from our.
It's just like elevated. Everything is like, oh, the priest is this, the priest is that, and like, I remember just thinking, yes.
On the altar, he says the words, "This is."
Who is the priest? Who's the priest?
The priest for Archbishop Lefebvre is, more than anything, a man of the Mass, a man who offers the sacrifice of the
Mass and the priest that cannot be broken. And if you try to...
So he's a man of the Mass.
Talks about the priest being a man of sacrifice because he was ordained for
a man of the Mass, a man of sacrifice.
The Mass. The Archbishop says that the Mass is both contemplative and active.
I know he is no longer in the SSPX, but my parents were these extreme admirers of Bishop Williamson, which is horrible. I think that the SSPX, because they're kind of like the home of all the misfits. So you find a bunch of people in there, a lot of normal people too. I'm not saying everybody's like this, but you find very eccentric extremists of different ideas. Like at the church that I went to, there were people who were so gung-ho for the Confederacy, and they thought that the Confederacy was the ideal, and it shouldn't have been destroyed. It should have continued, and we should restore the principles of the Confederacy. And even the priest was, at the time, was kind of I don't like alluding to the fact that he accepted it. And yeah, there's just some weird things, weird people, weird ideas, normal people too.
But essentially active.
Source of all grace.
That's don't have to be any sort of superhuman to be able to save the world because Christ has already saved it. Sort of superhuman to be able to.
Wait.
And then at that moment, we don't have to be any sort of superhuman to be able to save the world because Christ has already saved it.
Moon landing deniers. Yeah. I'm sure there's those people too. Yeah, so what I don't want to say any of their names, but this whole idea of, there were a lot of things I think that led me to have a crisis of my identity. And one of the hard things about talking about these things is I was taught and trained not to feel sorry for myself, not to accept, not to go boohoo, and just move on. Just move on with your life, and stop talking about things, stop revisiting things. And but anyway, so I'm trying to think about how deep into this I should go, but this was one of the appealing things about the priesthood to me. I didn't have very good view of myself when I was a teenager, especially because I was comparing myself to other men in the parish, the priest, the saints, the expectation, the ideal. And I felt like I was never progressing. It was just a constant battle, like I was going against the current, and I was being taken away by it. Anyway, and there was something really beautiful about the priesthood and all of these elements. It's interesting because I thought that maybe what I'd been through in my life was kind of giving me a good perspective on these different ideas. Like because I had experienced certain things, I was able to have a sort of intimate knowledge with these types of concepts. So this idea of becoming less, like almost destroying yourself in order to make way for God. And I remember thinking, well, I never, like, who I am, like, I don't want to act for myself. I don't want to give in to myself. I don't want any of that. I do want just God within me. I don't want, if I don't have to do anything for myself, like selfishly, again, that's fine. Tell me what to do, tell me what to say. And it's not like a robot thing, like, take away my free will, but like doing things for other people, doing things for God, like that was the thing that was going to complete me. And so this idea of, what does he say? At that moment, we don't have to be any sort of superhuman. Like, it's not us.
To be any sort of superhuman to be able to save the world.
It's like, it's not us. It's a participation of God, us and God, in order to, it's like God moving through us. All of the most important things that a priest does, the priest is an instrument. He's the one who says the words, but he doesn't have the power. It's God moving through him. So I was like, great. I can help people. I can put myself out in the world, give my body, my words, my mind, my soul to other people. Well, you know what I mean. And I really thought that, but I think that who I was, like, I never, like, how can you give something that you don't have? How could I have given God my identity, myself, when I didn't even know who I was? Does that make sense? Yeah, I know other people have had these types of thoughts and these experiences and these reflections looking back. But it's a different nature. It's on a totally different level when you give yourself to religion. But anyway, moving on. Let's see.
His own question, you are everything and nothing. Norbert has a...
You know, there's also this tendency that I noticed whenever you speak to a priest or the holy person of the church or whatever, it's like, it's almost like you can't like break down the wall and actually have a conversation with them. I remember there were a lot of people who were attracted to the way that I spoke in my sermons and the direction that I gave in confession. And it's because like I didn't put on like, I'm the priest and I'm going to talk to you, my faithful. You know, it's like I never had that perspective of my role. And it also wasn't like I was like, hey buddy, how's it going? Like, you know, oh yeah, how was, you know, no, none of that. But I spoke to people like in a very upfront, genuine way. But I remember like even the way all these priests, great guys, great intentions, but it's like Saint Norbert has a beautiful definition of the priest. It's like, who talks like that?
A beautiful definition of the priest. Who are you, O priest? He asks. And then he answers his own...
Even the way they talk is very... And I don't want to criticize who they are, but I saw men, boys, young men, go into the seminary and then 7 years later come out a totally different person. They are transformed. Okay, fine. But I saw people who were acting, not maliciously, but they were like, now I have to be the priestly type of person. You know, we're told after 2 years in the seminary, once we get our cassock, you will be visually like a priest for everyone in the world. People will see you and they won't know automatically that you're not a priest yet. So right now you got to start acting like a priest. And it's like 2 years in. And I saw people once they got the cassock, it's like they walk around differently. They, you know, and even people that were in my class, just seeing the change in them. And I'm sure I changed too. I'm not saying that I was immune to that type of influence, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a holier than thou tone. Like, it's hard because if you have a bad perspective of religion and priests, then there's plenty of examples that you can take. But I knew these people. I knew what their intentions were. I knew some of them I went through in class, or they were very close to me in the seminary. And it's like, everyone was just trying to do their best. Trying to, like, you hear all the time, the priest does this, the priest does that, the priest doesn't do this, the priest, and then, you know, you have the professors who are constantly picking you out of the crowd, or at least that's what they did to me. There was one time I was in a group in the dining hall, and I laughed really hard because someone said something really funny. And my spiritual director came to me and said, Francis, the priest is in control of himself. So the way you behaved out there shows that you don't have control over your body. And in my head, I connected that with purity, which was something that I was already struggling with. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to be in control of myself, even in these details. Maybe a better way to say it is, it just sounded kind of breathy and yes, I don't know. Oh yes, the grace of God is with you.
Question, you are everything.
Is this not cryptic? You are everything and nothing. Thank you. You are everything and nothing. What does that mean? Everything because you the God within you, the God's power, and nothing because you are nothing.
And nothing. Nothing because finally the priest is just a creature. He's a man with a fallen human nature as the rest of men. But the priest is also everything because
Everything. I'm
there
not
really
making
is
fun of
no
him.
way for souls to go to God except through the priest.
Yes, I'm telling you. Okay, so that's the seminary that I never went to. Well, I did go after it was built, but I helped fundraise for this building. I made a lot of cold calls. I helped with the promotion. I actually helped design the website. I did events. I was organizer of events. So you're welcome. No. uh, the path to the priesthood. I don't know how much I want to look at all of this. It's crazy too. Some of these, I like the ones who were just ordained, they just came into the seminary when no, that can't be right. 5, 6. So maybe they just came in when I was ordained. Because I think it's about 7 years. Wait, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah. 22.
You are, and he wants you as you are, but he wants to refine you.
He wants you.
If I was to
Okay.
give an analogy of the formation of the priesthood, I'd best describe it as a pilgrimage. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's what the seminary formation is like.
You know, I just as a side note, in the seminary, I went with a group of 10 or 12, 10 seminarians and a priest. We did the Camino de Santiago in Compostela, Spain. We walked for 30 days. We did about between 25 and 30 kilometers every day. It was something like, let me see what the, I want to see what, so we started in France. Let's see. All right, I don't know, but it's a very old pilgrimage from the Middle Ages, and it used to be a penance for people. Oh no, did I? No, I got rid of the YouTube video. All right, growing up, I remember the priest being treated like God himself. Families actually fought over having him over for supper. We went to our parish priest for everything. You know, I understand that. I understand why people did that. So there's this idea that everything is confused and messed up in the world. And so within that community, you find like a bubble of peace and a place where everything makes sense. And the leader of that bubble is the priest. Because a lot of these churches throughout the world are very isolated. Some of them have bigger communities, but a lot of them are just, maybe 100 people on Saturdays and Sundays. And there's this idea of like being starved, almost like spiritually starved. Like all throughout the week, you have to deal with everything that's happening in the world, and then you can go back to the safety and security of that bubble. And the priest, like I said before, is like the father of the family. And you want the affection of the father. And because you're starved and you're broken from what happened during the week or from your life, or all this baggage, like you want to have that closeness with the priest, you want to have the attention of the priest. What the priest did in the church that when I started going to the SSPX, he would spend some time with the new families, and then he would leave them and then go on to the next new families. And there was so much jealousy amongst people. And but yeah, I don't know. Complicated. It's complicated. Watching the video, it's so bizarre just thinking back about that time in my life and the ideas that I had, the aspirations, and thinking that I had finally reached like when you're playing a video game and you reach a checkpoint. It's like once I became a priest, it was like bing, I got past that checkpoint. So I always have that, like I've made that decision and that's for life. So if ever I feel confused or something happens, like there's something that I can at least rest upon. And of course, when that was upended by a loss of faith in general, that wasn't really something I could sit on. But I did have that feeling like, whew, I did that. I made that. I made that step. I committed myself, and now it's clear what I have to do. At least like on general terms. Obviously, life's never simple, but yeah, I was in no way. I never thought that leaving would never be a possibility. That I was very aware of my weakness. I was very aware that I was lacking in certain areas, and I thought I'm capable of anything. Anything is possible. I was never the type of person that thought that was naive. I didn't want it, obviously. I don't know. In my experience, the clamoring over... Sorry, wait a second. Wait, where's the music? Come on. Why isn't the music playing? Oh, come on. I don't know what I did. All right. In my experience, the clamoring over getting the priest to your house for dinner was more for bragging rights that the priest was your friend than for genuine hospitality. I do remember that. And I remember priests liking to be at particular houses more than others. Sometimes I couldn't blame them. Some houses are more fun. I don't know what I did with the sound. I don't know what happened. Any more questions? I am an open book. And any resolutions? Does anybody have any resolutions for the new year? I would like to hear them because I still have to get one. No, I have. One of my resolutions is getting on my book, working on it. It's been I've had a really long hiatus from writing my book, and there was a moment where I was like, this is stupid. Why am I even writing this? It's not beneficial to anybody. And I realized that I just need to finish it. I can decide if I want to publish it or not after I finish, but I just need to finish it. And I also want to start exercising more, not like I'm going to do this, but more being active, being outside, being in the sun. Work out more. Roger that. Yeah, just being more active. I think a lot of what I learned these past 2 years is that in the United States, we're so dependent on drugs and medical help. And I think there's a lot of personal things that we can do outside of medication. Like, even there's been rare occasions where I've taken Tylenol when I have a headache or something, because I like to feel the pain. No, because like I don't want to be dependent on things. And when I'm sick with the flu, not unless it reaches a certain threshold, it's like let my body just fight this off and be in that state instead of just depending on medication. So I think obviously medication is, we've got to use medication. My parents are nurses. I am in no way going to go naturalistic. I'm no way going to go to that extreme. But I think becoming too dependent on medication for everything is also a bad thing. So I think being out in the sun, moving more, not being on your butt, doing live streams all the time, I think that will help. And being realistic. So many times it's like, this year I'm going to work out 5 times a week for an hour and a half. And it's like, come on. If I go twice a week, that's good. Because that's 2 times a week more than I did before. And taking yourself where you are and being realistic. I don't know what's happening with the sound. This is so annoying. I wanted to have some beats in the back. Let me see if it's working now. Oh. Happy New Year 2022. Let's see this. Oh, there we go. All right. What else? Tell me more things. This week I'll come back with some more directional type live stream. I'll have more of a topic. How good is your Spanish? It's pretty good. Yeah, that was challenging when I first came to Mexico. I like to express myself like every other person. And in the beginning, when I was here, and not just going and living in a new country without knowing the language, but going to another country without knowing the language and being a priest for the first time in your life, that was a really big challenge. And I was immediately, maybe like within a month, I was sent off by myself to different churches on the weekend, and I had to do everything. And without knowing the language, it was miserable. So miserable. I did learn Spanish very quickly though, so it was a good method to learn English. It was not a good method for mental health. But, I was a man of sacrifice. I had to just do it. And I was a man of obedience. So even if I didn't agree with it, even if I didn't understand it, I had to do it. Are there certain expressions, aspects of Spanish that you like particularly compared to English? I was just talking to someone the other day about this. Well, first of all, some words in Spanish make more sense to explain a thought or an idea that I have than the English word. Because English is very cut and dry. It's very mechanical. It's very... I'm thinking of the Spanish word right now to describe English. Útil. Useful. I think that's why English is the international language of business. It's very logical. But Spanish, and I love the way, especially Mexicans, they describe a situation. In English, you can say it in 3 words, 1 sentence, done. But here in Mexico, people describe things, and they connect things, and they repeat things, but in a different way, and it's a lot more, it's a lot more descriptive and beautiful. But sometimes, being an American, I'm like, can we get to the point? But I think I've chilled out a lot more being here in Mexico. It's really put things in perspective. Like, career is not everything. And that was something that I needed to hear, especially from where I'd come from. Career is not everything. Living is everything. Family is everything. And I'm working on that. One thing also, so on January 3rd, I think, so that's Tuesday, the offices for immigration open up, and they sent me an email a few days ago and said that I was accepted to get my temporary residency. And so I have to go to the office again, probably at least 2 more times, but and I've already been there 6 or 7 times. It's been a heck of a journey. But this lasts for 4 years, this temporary residency, so I don't have to go back to the States. And I can get a job, which is very important because I'm not getting work right now. Being an English teacher, people are not spending a lot of money for English classes from a tutor. So, and I can't get a normal job because, excuse me, you need to have your, what is it, like your tax information and all of that. And as a foreigner, you need to have your visa, your work visa, which I don't have anymore. So on Tuesday, I'm going and getting that. And then I can get a job. And I'm excited about that. And I don't care. There's actually a place near here, a barber. I'm thinking in Spanish again. A haircutting place, and it's all men that work there. It's like the retro, like, you know, the guys with the beards that are curled up, but they're looking for a not a receptionist. What's it called? Receptionist? In Spanish it is recepcionista. Anyway, somebody to answer the phone and make the appointments. Yeah, receptionist. Yeah, I'm losing my mind. And I'm thinking about trying that. But this week I'm also going to go around to different tattoo studios around here and seeing if they need help, if they want another tattoo artist there, or if I could work doing whatever. But long-term goals, I'm looking into something within the field of psychology. I still think that I'm called, if you want to say that, to help people. And I don't know if I'm gonna have the means to go back to school full time, but I'm looking towards that direction. Are you gonna celebrate with a dinner or something? Yeah, actually, on on Friday is my birthday, and also the birthday of my boyfriend. We were born on the same day, the same year, and he is 23, I think, 23 minutes older than me. And it's crazy that we 32 years later, no, it was 31 years later, we met each other. So on Friday we'll have a nice dinner. Were there any major differences between the SSPX people in the US and Mexico, or were they pretty much the same? Well, there's even differences in the United States depending on where you are. But in Mexico, you know, it's interesting. We're talking about the respect of the priest. Here, the respect for the priest was on a different level. Just one way. When you greet a priest here within this SSPX community, you take the hand of the priest and you kiss it. There's this idea too that you don't say no to a priest out of disrespect. So I was very, very careful when I asked someone to do something, or if they could do something, that I had to be explicit to not make it a definite yes or no type of question, because like I didn't want them to say yes and then not be able to do it or whatever. I didn't want to force people to do things just because I was a priest. I'm trying to think if there's any. I think that was the big thing. One thing that I noticed here in Mexico is there's a huge divide in the parishioners of the parish. I don't know if it was specifically just the priests that I was a part of and the churches that I worked at. It's weird for me to say worked. That I served at. And the people closest to the priests were either the very holy ones of the church or the ones with the most money, the ones who were held up in the church, the big families, the successful families. In Mexico, and this is something that my boyfriend can attest to, and other people, ask somebody who's from Mexico, especially in the big cities, there is a huge problem with classism. People, not only in the United States, there's rich people, poor people, okay. But here, there's such an emphasis on showing your status, on making sure that other people know your status. It's not just like where my family lives now. Our neighbors used to be, when I lived there, the neighbors were really rich, very rich. Like in their backyard, they had their boat, they had this, they had that. But we lived in the same neighborhood, and my family was not rich by any means. But you know, it wasn't really apparent from the outside that they were extremely rich and we weren't. But here, you have totally different areas of the city. You go into the city and everything is more expensive. Everything. It's like a piece of go to the bakery, and in the poor part, it's like 20 cents. I'm using dollars. 20 cents. And then in the rich part, it's like $5. The same thing. You seem like you would have been a good priest and not a power tripping one. Well, I guess that's a compliment. Thank you, Jennifer. I think I was on the other side of the spectrum where I didn't really think highly of myself at all. So I think there was a healthy balance that I think I have now. A healthy confidence that I have now. I don't know. Life is crazy. Life. That's kind of why I want to finish my book and get it out there, because it's like there's certain things that you can't believe are possible until you experience it or you hear it, and it puts things in perspective. Well, we've gone on for 5 hours and an hour and 20 minutes. With usted and tú in Spanish. Did the parishioners... Yeah, usted. And actually, you... So usted is the formal version of you. Tú is like your buddies or your equals or someone lower than you status-wise, like a parent to a child or a boss to, well, I guess that's different, but and then the respectful way that you do to the elders or the priests or your parents or something like that is usted. So that's a big divide. Yeah, even some of the priests I remember here, they would use usted with me. And I'm like, please, can we just, take the collar off for a second and like be normal people talking to each other? I had the wrong perspective. I should have been a priest from the second that I woke up to the second I went to bed. Even when I was asleep, even when I'm dreaming and I can't control my thoughts, I should have remained a priest, even in my dreams. Well, hey, if anybody has any topic ideas or video ideas, or for the next live stream, if anybody wants to send me any topics that I could talk about, I'm interested. I mean, I have ideas, but it interests me more to cover things that you guys want. Because I feel like, when you're in a conversation and then you realize, oh shoot, I'm the only one talking. I've been talking for the last 5 minutes. I need to shut up. That's how I feel sometimes. I'd like to bring you into the conversation as much as possible. I like this music. I can't wait to read it. Well, let's see if this year is the year that I finish it. And I was thinking of trying to publish it and getting all of that done, but maybe a good way to do this would be posting it or giving it to people who donate to the page that I have available, Ko-fi. Maybe something like that. So it's like, that you're contributing to me directly. Maybe something like that. If anybody has any idea on the publishing side of things, the next step after someone finishes writing a book, if anyone has anybody in their family, and I would love to just have someone explain to me the best way to do something, because I I feel like if I go to a publisher, I'll just get effed over. And I don't want that. And if I do self-publishing, it's like, well, how the heck do I do that? Goodbye, Roger. I have to go, but it's been fun watching. I hope you finish your book and look forward to reading it. Thank you. Christine, getting joy out of serving people is something I wish more people felt. What a different world this would be. Amen. Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of selfish people out there. You can self-publish through Amazon. Yeah. But I think there's like a formatting, I don't know. And is it only digital copies? Is that the only... It's... I've actually done this. Oh, nice. Yeah, contact me. Contact me when you have a second. Well, everybody, thank you for coming. Happy New Year. And I will be back. Oh, no paperback also. Nice. Okay, we're going to talk. But I'll be back on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on what happens, for another live. And I hope to see you there. Yeah, we're definitely talking, Sam. All right, everybody. Goodbye.